Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Upton Summer Series race series on the Smithy Run Replay channel. We are back with my fourth race, but the sixth race of the series today. The stats are now popping up on screen. So this is a series, it's a point scoring series where you get a point for first, 2 points for second, 3 points for third, and so on, with the lowest score across 4 races counting to your overall. I have 3 wins from 3 races that I have done this year already. There is another lad with 2 wins and a second, so I can still lose the series and come second depending on my result from this race. And then there is another lad with 2 seconds and 2 thirds, so he still has a chance to win depending on how far back I come in the positions for today. But we are going for the win. That is the aim today. The race is a 3.5-mile long route. As you can see, we've seen an awful lot of the sky and not the route so far. So well done, cameraman me, for pointing the camera up at the sky. But it does get better as we go on in this race. 5.7k or 3.5 mile loop, as we've said. It's a 2-lap course featuring one long gradual climb and a steep small climb each lap. So I like to use these as a sort of way to push the pace, try and do some damage to the competitors around me and that sort of thing. I like to hold a steady pace when I do these races because I'm more of a short distance runner. I'm an 800 meter, 1500 meter runner at heart, and this is far for me. So we like to go out at a nice, comfortable, easy pace, ease into the race, and then try and come back at people with some speed in the second half. So you can see we're sat at about 14th at the moment, 500 meters in, and about sort of 3:30 pace, which is comfortable for me to be running at the moment. But you can see the leaders are already roughly like 30 meters ahead of me, and that is something that we're going to have to work to bring back through the rest of the race. So here we are, skipping ahead to the 1k point. We're now in 11th, so we've made a couple of passes on the flat section just before this. Heart rate's about 171, so it's higher than I'd like, but my max heart rate does go to almost like the 190s into the 200s if it has to on the day. So here we are going through the 1k point, and that's a 3:32, so nice comfortable kind of pace. 17:30 5k pace. I have run 5k's down in the low 16s in the last year or so, so this is a pace that I can hold on to and hopefully come back nice and hard at the end. We do have Ben, who is one of our main competitors for the overall series, hanging on my shoulder at the moment. He's just right on my right shoulder. You can't pick it up on the camera, but he is there because we had a little chat as we were going down into the first K point. We're making some moves here past a few people, so we're now into 9th and hopefully up into sort of 8th, 7th by the next corner. Right, so coming round the bend now in 7th, you can see the leaders up ahead. The guy in the black top right at the front is someone who has a very similar finishing time to me in a few of the series prior to this race. Just coming around this corner here, we've moved around sort of into the 6th and 7th position. This is the start of the slow, gradual incline hill. I'm putting a little bit of a burst here just to get out of the way of Dave, who's a fellow pool runner. And I don't think Ben particularly enjoyed this spurt as he runs up next to me and tells me that I'm trying to murder him in this sort of increasing pace. But we are running around sort of like the 3:14s pace when we did that, so we did definitely put a little bit of a spurt in to bring us into the 4th place. The elevation and the slope will begin as we're going up this next section here, so we can still see the leader is roughly sort of like 15 meters in front of us, and the slope of this part gradually brings us up to about 3 to 4%, which is not terrible, but it's just enough to do some damage if you're trying to run fast off it or trying to put a burst of speed up into it. This race also has a team result, so I'm running for pool runners, which is the dark blue vest with the light blue sides. We can see another pool runner just in front of me. It is free to score for a team, so a good team result is on the cards here today, as we currently have me sitting in third, another pool runner just in front of me in second, and then Dave a few behind in about fifth or sixth right now. Moving our way up the slope, you can see that it's reached sort of a 4-5% gradient. That was probably the steepest part of this long gradual slope, and this is where I feel my most comfortable catching and overtaking people because of the 800 meter strength and sort of 1500 meter speed, as allows me to put a bit more of a speed change into these hills than some of the other guys who are more catered towards half marathon runners. The pace has dropped though down to 3:48, which is not awful, but it's not ideal. I prefer to have kept a more even pace as we're going up this, but we will just be making our way to the 2k point at the top of this hill. And there we go. So the 2k point has just come up now, and that is a second kilometre in 3:36 with the 12 metres of elevation. So not terrible. We've dropped about 3 seconds from the pace we were running on the downhill, which is probably good. It means that I've been running quite even. You can see we are still in third as we come into this sharp corner for a nice sharp downhill. There is Ben. He's just overtaken me on my right shoulder and then flown down the hill past our other pool runner. So that's my sort of main competitor today. The guy with his 2 wins and his second place doesn't seem to be here today. So that means that my main competitor is Ben in front of me for the overall series win. So just skipping ahead another couple of 100 metres, we've managed to catch Ben on some of the flat section. You can still see the leader is holding a good pace ahead of us. He's holding nice and consistent. We're now going to come around these slight curves before we go into the main steep uphill section of the loop. This is like one of my favourite parts of the loop because this is where I like to make a move if I'm trying to burn someone off, because it is roughly 400 meters from the finish, and it's a nice good point to start a run for the finish where you can put a couple of meters into someone as you're going up this hill. The slope here is only sort of around 8%, so it's not terrible. I know the stats say it goes up to 12, but I wouldn't believe that because I don't know what Garmin has been chugging there, if I'm completely honest. We move up into this bit, and as we come down through past the car park and to the trees, this will be the first lap completed. A bit more of a view of the sky. It is a lovely day today, as you can see, because we've seen more of that than the course, and I do apologise for that. Moving around at the halfway point, and we are at 188 heart rate, which is far higher than I would like to be. Typically in a 5k where I'm feeling good, I would be at around the sort of like 178 to 179 point at this bit, but I think it's more of the excitement of the race which is actually pushing my heart rate. As we're coming down this section of the hill, we will get to the 3k point, and I'm just having a conversation with Ben here where I'm telling him that I think the leader is actually holding a good pace and we're not really making any progress into catching him here. Here is the 3k point in 3:32, so we've done nice even splits as we've gone so far, but the leader is still got a gap on me and Ben, and that's something that I'd like to close in the next sort of kilometre or so. So I'm just telling Ben that I think we either need to push the pace on now or wait for the long incline and then try and push the pace on to catch him there. So it was actually at this point, roughly at this bench, where I decided that I think we best try and catch him before the slope, and then that way, if we hold the pace going into the slope, then we can do a lot of damage up the slope to try and pull away from him. So we are beginning to move slightly quicker than our 3:30 pace, moving to the sort of like 3:20s, 3:25s, as I'm trying to slowly close the gap over the next sort of 700 to 800 meters. I want to be on his shoulder basically when we go into the 4K point, so that with a mile left to do, that's when I can start speeding up and start trying to push for the win. This is a wonderful country park down in Poole. This is the Upton Country Park. There is actually a park run in this course. It does run the loop the opposite way around, so if you're ever around the Poole area, it is a very nice park run to do, although it is a little hillier than some park runs, but not as bad as many others. So the gap has closed, as we can see here. We now are only roughly 6 or 7 meters behind the leader. I'm still running in the 3:20s to try and bring myself close to him as possible. Ben is still hanging on my shoulder. So the two of us have now caught the leader as we do a little burst just to get right on his shoulder, so that we can get a bit more of a benefit from running behind him. So we're now coming round into roughly the 2 kilometer to go point, and I'm in a bit of two minds here of whether I should go past him early or if I should wait to where I feel a bit more comfortable to go with a bit more pace towards the end to try and push away. We've dropped the pace back down to the 3:37s, and that is because I'm now running at his pace, and it's telling me that he is slowing a bit, if not tiring. So we are now just going to wait for our opportunity, I believe, to try and move into the lead. As we come round this bend, he is still right on my shoulder. Well, he's actually still in front of me at this point. But as we move round the bend, I decide that as we are going into the long incline section, that now is the time to make the move. So we go on past, still sticking at the same pace, but as we turn this bend, I'm having a little bit of a look round just to see like where he is and where Ben is, so that I can move into the incline and then start pushing on the pace and seeing if we can do some damage to them as we're going up the hill. As you can see, the pace is absolutely dropping down as we are really pushing it on. We're now at 3:09 per kilometer. That last K was a 3:28, so it was our fastest of the race so far. We did a little bit of work at 3:08 just to try and produce a gap, and then we settle in at around the sort of 3:20 mark as we are moving up the hill. This is just so that I can try and do some damage, because the best way when you catch someone up in one of these distance races is to go straight past and then to put a spurt in to try and not allow them to sit right on your shoulder. So we are working our way up the hill at the moment in a 3:17, 3:16 pace, and it's just around this point here where I have a little look back as we're coming around the trees, and I realise that Ben is also got a gap back of around 5 to 6 meters at this point. So seeing that, I think, well, there's no point easing back down to the 3:35 pace, and we might as well push from now till home, especially if we have a gap. We need to try and hold that gap and not allow them to come back towards me for a sprint finish at the end. We're just reaching the top of this incline, and then we will go down the hill for our final kilometre of the race. So here we are, we've skipped ahead ever so slightly. We've now done the downhill, and we are now trying to work as hard as we can to hold this gap away from the two behind. Ben has dropped roughly about 10 to 15 meters back from me. He likes to go fast on the downhill, so I was anticipating him closing the gap a little bit as we came round the downhill. My watch is a little out here. This is the 5k point roughly on the course, so we went through in a roughly 17:15 to 17:20 with 700 meters still to run. As we run round the corner here, my watch actually picks up this 5k point as a 3:22, but I believe it was probably close to the 3:18s kind of point, and now it is the push for home. We're lapping a few of the other runners on the course at the moment as we move our way towards the final 600 meters of the loop. Working hard here. My heart rate is in the 192s now, which is meaning that there's not really much more for me to give, but I do have a gap, so I can feel quite comfortable going up the hill. We try to at least put a little bit of a spurt in up the hill just to make sure that that gap doesn't come down, but as you can see, we're dropping into the 330s now, so it is very much a run for home and try and win. As you can see, some of the other runners are coming down that little bend into the section. Had a little look behind and actually was unable to see either of the other runners, so that means that I'm quite happy with the gap that I've got, and now I can sort of relax into the final 200 to 300 meters. We're going to turn the bend round towards the finish and still unable to see either of the other two, and we start to move our way down towards the Upton house, which is where the start was and the finish. The times just ticked over into the 19s. My fastest for this course in this series is 19:44, so now we're just running against the clock to see if we can beat my best time for the series, running roughly 3:10s as we're coming into the final 100 meters and round the bend, which would be lovely if you could see, but those clouds do look nice as well, I am sure. Here, as we push and push and push right into the finish, and we finish in a time of 3:34, which is my fastest time of the series and gives me an overall race win. So thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. There's Ben just popping in for second, and it got him second overall, which is wonderful, and I'm really happy for that for the series. And hopefully I'll get to race him again next year. So thank you very much guys for watching, and I will see you next time.